Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast, where every week we hear an amazing story from a serious founder who built a valuable software company and did it without big funding. I'm your host, Greg Head, and this week my guest is Chris Erler, one of the co-founders and the former COO of ComX, COMX.io, which is a software and tech-enabled services company, practical, fast-growing success story based in Berlin. They did LeadGen and technology and sales enablement technology, they say, for German companies who were struggling with lead generation and all that pre-marketing, pre-CRM, pre-sales kind of activities. He and his co-founders built the business, grew it to 20 million, sold it in a fantastic private equity exit. And he describes his journey doing it in Europe and being the speed freaks in a very conservative business culture and succeeding at it. It's a great interview with Chris. Welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast, Chris. Good to see you.
Thanks so much for inviting me, Greg. Nice to see you.
It's a Friday afternoon. It's later where you are. You're in Berlin these days. Are you in the city, downtown?
Yes, exactly.
Right in the middle of it all?
Directly next to the Dividor. If people know Berlin, that's where we actually built the company.
Excellent. And are you from that area?
I'm originally from Austria, from actually very close where Arnold Schwarzenegger is from Tyrol, from the mountainside of Austria.
Mountains, yeah.
Exactly. Grown up with skiing and with amazing mountainside.
But you didn't want to be in the beautiful countryside. You went right to the big cities here and building companies and doing the startup thing. Did you always know that you would leave the beautiful Austrian Alps?
I mean, I would say it was very serendipitous. So I never knew I will found something. The only thing I knew is I want to do things differently. And especially when I was in my 20s, I was working in big corporates like General Electric or like Swarovski. These are the only companies in my area. And I knew in my 20s, I don't want to jump the hierarchy and the career ladder and do that spiel. I'd rather do something more, we call it innovative. So that's what I decided for when I was very young. Leaving Austria, 2013.
Well, we know the story here of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was in Graz, and left and wanted to do the American adventure way back when. And well, congratulations. You've got an amazing entrepreneurial story, and you're a young guy, so you're going to keep doing this. But let's just dive in here. Your company was called ComX, COMX.AI, I think it was that. And why don't you briefly describe what was that product that you built and how did that work? And we'll talk about, you had an exit, and then we'll go back and talk about the story of building it and your crazy adventure.
100%. So I would say the elevator pitch of ComX.io is we started it bootstrapped 2018. It was a vertically integrated data-driven sales enablement platform. We started it out originally the MVP phase in Copenhagen. Then later we started it for real 2020 in Berlin. And our target audience was basically small and medium-sized companies in the DACH region, German-speaking region only, that struggled with lead gen. And if we think back, I know time is passing very fast with all the advancements. 2020 was still in Germany very undigitalized. So lead gen was happening in fairs. Cold call center was there was a huge pain in generating leads, was very expensive and very people heavy. And we changed it in terms of making it digital easier. And basically we grew to 140 people 3 years later, 2023. 2022, we were able to sell the private equity. So we're very lucky. It was about the right timing. And that's the short story.
Okay. So were you bringing, let's say, what we recognized at the time, 2018, 2020, let's say modern digital lead gen practices to Germany when you said they were going to trade shows and they were doing outbound is very traditional, and not very digital? Were you just, you weren't an agency. It was a whole software or data solution, right?
So I think we did some, I would say, innovative things or new things in the area, in the area I'm calling Europe and that area and DACH region especially, but Europe.
Yeah.
So in 2018, I was working in a consultancy and was the SDR myself. So I had cold calls. I booked a day want to do meetings, and it was a very small agency, very
Hmm.
small in consultancy. And my boss back in the day saw like me super enthusiastic generating more leads, and he told me, "Hey Chris, this is a book called Predictable Revenue. We might just
Right.
implement that one." So Predictable Revenue, Aaron Ross, former
Yes.
VP of Sales from Salesforce, and it was all about like how to automate your front end pipeline so that you don't burn out people like I was with 27 daily on the phone. And that was new. That was new in Germany. So that was the novelty. So in the beginning, we very much started as an agency. Honestly, we just sold it differently. So we did a little bit fake it till you make it, but we were definitely an agency, but we called us very early AI for sales. Honestly speaking, there was a lot of manual dirk. Like, manual dirk is the
Yeah.
expression where people are behind it. So
Yeah.
until 3 years later, we only focus on one thing that's breached in the lean startup book. It's all about like build, measure, learn. And before we
Yep.
didn't have the feedback from the clients, we did not build it. And that building the platform happened much later.
So it started as this, let's say, lead generation agency, which is kind of the universal problem. You have
Exactly.
something to sell and you have salespeople who sell it. And the limit to growth is how many leads, prospects, new customers you can convert. And, everybody can figure out the product and the sales. Not everybody figures out the marketing, right? In the long run.
Exactly.
That's what we say. It's about distribution here. Tell us about the ComX software. Was it
Yeah.
CRM plus leads in there, or what was it really for these customers in
Yeah.
Germany and Austria and Europe?
I think you almost hit it on the spot. We called it pre-CRM. There was a methodology that did not really exist in Europe, but we simply understood that people understand that. So everyone has a CRM. So it's
Yeah.
filled like with data that's not actionable. So sometimes we also call it trash. It's contacts, but no one, not real in action. And
Yeah.
we filled the pre-CRM market and coined that term. And the second term we coined was actually something called message market fit. So that's very similar to product market fit. It's just about your marketing message. So our product basically was 6 steps. It was the 6 steps ComX workflow. It was number one, an ideal customer profile definition. Number two, a message crafting. Number three, a data scraping part. Number four, direct outreach. And then number five, a feedback and analysis and a report. And that didn't happen or did not exist before. That was the novelty. There were a lot of agencies for each part. Loads of marketing agencies for an ICP, loads of like data companies like ZoomInfo, very early, direct
Yes. Uh-huh.
outreach tool, HubSpot, name it. But no one really integrated the full workflow. And we were once one of the lucky first to do it. And that actually slashed sales cycles in many organizations and companies to 20 to 25 days and put up conversion rates because suddenly people start to focus on the right deals and the right contacts instead of
Yes.
just like jamming their CRM
Oh
and
my gosh.
no one
Yes.
knows like where to start calling. And it was with especially smaller SME companies from all industries. Yeah, they were just struggling a lot. That's what we saw in the market.
And so you sold this as, I don't know, maybe there's a little consulting in there, the ICP,
Yes.
therapy and so forth, but you sold this as a technology platform that they could use, or would contractors do the outreach, or, was it email oriented, or, who was doing the work to
Yeah.
identify these
And
prospects?
and that might be completely the change to tools that I see on the market and other competitors we had that we outperformed. So we sold to solve the problem and we didn't sell the platform. We said, you need more leads, but it's not only about the platform. It's not only about data. And a lot of companies already, the last 10 years since 2011 and 12, they tried out lots of different things. They tried out some cold email, etc. So we basically put a consulting area on top, a level on top, and that was for free. So we said, like, we are more expensive, but we help you out. So if you're struggling in the ICP, if you're struggling in the messaging or with the data that you have selected because the market simply doesn't reply, we help you out and we take over. So that consultancy part was a huge part of our value proposition. The rest, the login, the platform was automated basically. So we had like
I
uh,
see.
idea customer profile definition where we basically did like a workshop in a very bootstrapped and very efficient format. And we had a team of, at the end, 70 people sitting in South Africa that did manual data scraping. So in 2020,
Ah,
still manual data scraping. That sounds really old school, But still, until today, it's still one of the best methods until you really have completed every step with AI, because AI still, and back in the day, software did mistakes. So you always had fresh data, and South Africa has great staff, great people.
Yeah.
And they are used to repetitive works. They have call centers there. Amazon Kindle has their call center down there. So we saw like a huge opportunity there, and we basically decided to grasp it.
And were your customers in Germany, these middle market customers, were they you? Did they all have a CRM like Salesforce or Pipedrive or something like that? Did they all have a CRM, but they were still saying we need to feed the CRM with leads?
Here we go. That was our target audience. It was between 20 and 500 employees, and there are tens of thousands of companies. And we
Yes,
call it the backbone of the European
of course.
economy.
Hmm.
And they all had CRMs implemented, Pipedrive, HubSpot, name it, Salesforce a lot, and most of them, all of them, struggled like with keeping it actionable. And it's expensive. I mean, look at the Salesforce license. Still nowadays, it's expensive, and you burn a
Right.
lot of money if you don't close customers.
Yeah, and it's all about customers here.
Yep.
I've been in the CRM business, since the very early days. Did it 3 times, 2 very successful, companies out of that, and, it's just amazing to see how all of this is evolving, and in the SaaS game, people say they used to buy, "I want software. I want CRM software. I want contact management software. I need to do this myself," and I've been in Germany selling all of that before it was obvious. But in the long run, people want qualified leads for their salespeople, and they want real customers here. So you didn't sell them another piece of software that they would run themselves. You sold them, I mean, you had your platform in there, but there was a whole solution around that. Did they pay by the lead or pay by the result, or how did, it wasn't by the user of your software, something like that. How did they pay you?
That's correct. There was a novelty, for example, and something that definitely helped us for this hyper growth that we had in the first years. We basically sold a MRR, like basically just like a Spotify abonnement, 12 months contract, monthly recurring revenue. We did extensions like having 3 months invoicing instead of monthly, and that helped us a lot with cash flow. So the
Yes.
reason why we are able to do that, we had a fixed fee, like a fixed monthly recurring revenue, and then we had a variable cost for each lead on top. For us, the variable cost was not that important because the fixed fee already covered most of the cost. And
Ah,
with the fixed fee, like the value that we provided was the support. Was you have a
yeah.
problem, we solve it for you. We implemented consultant.com, Sam Owens. I don't know if people on the podcast know it. I recommend it.
Mhm.
We recommend looking into that. Scalable consulting methods like workshop calls, like online learning centers very early already that helped us to scale the support team. And the clients saw immediate value. And that was, for example, the first 2 years, I was doing weekly, twice a week support calls for all customers. We invited them, for example. So customers got insane amount of support. It helped us basically to drive up basically the ticket size per client. And that was part of the journey, how we were able to finance ourselves very early and had this growth year over year.
So you grew quickly. How much revenues, in euro or dollars, was the company at when you sold the majority in 2022?
We were at around 20 million ARR with around
Wow.
56% EBITDA margin, and the growth from 2018 to 2021 was actually 230%. And until there, we served around 300 SME, like
Yeah.
small medium enterprises, and we had approximate like ticket size per client, the customer lifecycle value, you can say it, or annual customer value of around 45,000 euros.
So that's a lot of customers.
Yeah.
That's a lot of leads.
Yeah.
That's a lot going on there. And how many employees did you have there?
When we sold, we actually were 90 employees, and then we grew at the end 2024, we were at around 140 people, like
Wow.
combining the Cape Town team, which was the data outsource team, and the support team, which were the biggest teams. And then we had like
Mhm.
also an in-house software development team, but only from 2020.
Yeah. And then what can you say about the private equity majority purchase? I guess that was Flex Capital,
Yes,
Flex dot Capital. Yeah.
Flex Capital, very dynamic fund from Berlin, really cool guys. And we actually we knew there's the golden age of SaaS, and it
Mhm.
will end soon. but no one knew. No one was able to look into the glass ball, right? And we knew there was still low interest rates, and we all, like all of our like all three co-founders, we were three in total. We always listened to the All In podcast, and they said already, okay, there might be a time where interest will just raise because there's loads of capital after COVID in the market. So we were just like, okay, we built the organization. We are all like mechanical engineers. We all like to serve. We have work-life balance. We never exceeded the 50 hours per week, actually, in the 3 years. We're very thankful for that. We always did the right decisions, but we knew that that thing is bigger than actually what we are able to handle. Like we were 180 employees, right? So we were like on the decision point 2021. I still remember that moment where we're looking in each other's eyes and we're like, why don't we de-risk and get a strategic partner on board? Because we have no idea about finance. We have no idea about organizational skills and really hiring very good people. And the whole governance part, like no one really had any motivation to go into that, right? Otherwise, they would have stayed. Otherwise, they would have stayed at General Electric, and Philip would have stayed at Google, and like
Yes, right.
Peter would have stayed at Accenture. It was just not our interest, and that's why we decided actually 2021, let's bring in a strategic partner, and that's where we started to contact, because actually we were cold contacted ourselves by a M&A boutique called Car Square, amazing guys from Europe. And they just asked us, okay, why don't you guys sell? So that's where we started 2021, the process. And it took actually 18 months to finalize the process and sell the company.
Wow, that's a little bit of a long time. And you started at the high zone as opposed to started in 2022 when things kind of turned down. So you were able to close it while the door was still open there. Did you stay on after this exit, the three founders here?
Absolutely. I mean, you only do a private equity deal like this size Bootstrap if the founders stay on, they have skin in the game. And we all three stayed on. Like it was for us like, okay, that's our baby. We want to help to grow it further. And it was for us just very important, like building and just keep the legacy alive and just like having a second exit.
Yeah. Well, what can you say about the exit here? You were almost 20 million euro in business, and it was a high time in the tech market and the heyday of SaaS, as you described it. Was it quite a large exit for your majority?
Yeah, absolutely. Like
De-risk?
we were in a 9-digit area, so it was more than we ever imagined. So if you think
Nine
about like
digits.
we all three founders were basically, especially me and Philip in Europe, like I didn't have a lot of backup, actually zero backup. So for me, it was just like I quit my consultancy job 2018, and I still remember that moment. I had 10,000 euros in my bank account. I know in some countries it's a lot, but that was my backup, right? I quit my job and went all in, and we got Daubanger, that's all unemployment money in Europe. Amazing. The guys in Copenhagen, they supported us really hardcore for our MVP phase. They said like 6 months you get money and get 30% of your salary, and you try to make your own startup. That was the rule that it still exists. It's amazing. Yeah. And we were all in, and then we reached that point and we saw the valuations, and we had no idea when we started 2021 and de-risk. We were just saying, okay, maybe we de-risk for multiple of 4 or something. The multiple was much higher. And we only had like the all-in podcast, Shopify, 30 multiple sales and valuations. So there was for us like, of course, like we said like, okay, let's de-risk right now. And also we knew competition wasn't sleeping. So we knew we need to do the right decisions. We need to get the right strategic partner in right now. In order to just like keep floating and keep ahead like competition. And no one knew what happens with AI later, but back in the days we were like, okay, we'd rather move fast because like we know we had a very open marketing, and we saw competitors merging up like mushrooms in the European market. So there was also a high pressure environment, and I have to say like after 5 years you also need like someone who supports you, because we are all only humans. I know a lot of founders, unfortunately, they had burnout symptoms. For me, it started something like this.
Yeah.
So it was just a lot of like multiple layers of the decision. But for us, it was just like, let's get the right partner on board and let's de-risk right now and not wait. Why? Because why?
Yes. Okay. Well, and it's a little bit not like a traditional SaaS. We made software like Pipedrive or HubSpot, and people pay us by the users and by the modules and so forth. There was a base fee and performance fees on top of that, right? So it was kind of performance oriented. And I mean, you were selling results, right? So that's a lot of weight. It's not just we're selling that our software will work whatever time of day you want to use it. You're selling, we're going to do this hard thing that you couldn't do yourself, right? That seems like a lot of weight, right? That's in some sense where the modern AI results-oriented companies are going, outcome-oriented
Yeah.
companies are going. But was it heavier to be, results-focused for your customers? That's what you were selling.
Like I always say, customer value first. That's part of like when I still build companies, I say customer value first because that, when it comes to bootstrap businesses, that's where you really put your focus on money, like basically money and like solving the problem, right? And
Yes.
for us, it came naturally. So we were very open. It's a lot about expectation setting. And of course,
Mhm.
you enter into a partnership with your customers. So they value and appreciate honest feedback. So if it doesn't work, we also had a money back guarantee, right? So of
Oh.
course, there are a lot of like, you create your own reality, you create your own product, your own stress level. I think customer value first helps a lot. It's a lot of weight on the shoulders.
Uh-huh.
If you don't have the right processes, that's where comes the mechanical engineer mindset in, and not
Uh-huh.
the right backup plans for your support team. Because I built a support team. We had in the beginning, loads of clients that freaked out, which I said we pay had thousands of euros, we had zero results. We became better in like just preparing the client for the journey and saying, hey, here are actually certain KPIs, here's certain input that we require from you to make this a success. So we made it a shared performance fee with the clients, and we were in the same boat with them. So at the end, if it didn't work out, we had a full analysis. What's the action plan for you guys in those 6 areas? Like, is it ICP, is it data, whatever? And they had a full strategy. So we sold the whole product, the added value completely different. So we didn't change anything about the product. We changed the mindset, we changed expectation setting, and we changed trust. And we were only able to do that because of the service layer. We were sitting in front of our customers online only. I met, I think, 2 clients from the 800 or 1300 I worked with in the period of time. And we always were able to talk with customers and just explain them. And they just love this trust. So if you're high ticket in B2B, there's a trust level, and AI can't take over. But AI and automation can make it more efficient. And that's what we already
Yeah.
used like 5 years ago.
Yeah. Were you using AI in the software and the technology
Yeah.
or?
At the
Yeah.
end, like 2024, 2023, 2024, OpenAI, that they had loads of APIs. We did the messaging, we
I see.
automated
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So that was wonderful for us. It was like we were the part of the growth of, I was one of the early lead users of ChatGPT, OpenAI, and I'm a big fan.
But when you started and got this thing going, you weren't using the modern LLMs and
Nothing.
ChatGPT. You were using AI, actual intelligence,
We were
right?
actually
People,
people intelligence, and the beautiful
people
term,
scraping leads,
exactly.
people you doing the system. Yeah.
And we the beautiful term, what I learned is Manuel Dirk. He describes it very beautifully. It comes actually from the medieval times where they just like they played chess, and then there were people sitting below and moved the thingies,
Ah, right.
the features, and actually they said it's automated, but it was a person doing it. So we didn't know that there's actually
Yeah.
a terminology for that. But at the
I
end,
call that service as a software. People
so
have,
it's after, yeah,
it's kind of tech enabled, but
yeah,
they push a button
yeah,
and they don't know if a software is going to do it. You've
exactly.
had a lot of software, but people did things as well, right?
Yeah.
And they got the result like we do with the software, right? We
And
push a button and we get a result.
one thing I learned
So,
is the customer does not care about the product. The customer gives you money to solve the problem, whatever it is. So it doesn't matter. If it's easier and just more cost saving in B2B, like I'm only talking about B2B here,
yeah,
then it's a software. If it's very complex and the client just struggles a lot, then it's rather a service with a software component together. And what I'm really a big fan of is like making smart people very efficient and solve the whole problem in that space. That's what we're focusing right now in the recruiting area, actually, where I'm an advisor like called Octodus. I'm an advisor there, and the idea of this startup basically comes from I hired 50% of my team. First time I had a call and worked with a headhunter, I was just like, this is not for me. It sounds more like very inefficient ways, reselling like the same candidates over and over again. So in the lead gen, we had an automation running, and the same we did for recruiting. We hired like dozens of great people. And that's basically what we are focusing right now on, making the recruiting part much more efficient. And it's completely the same like ingredients, like how we build comics.
right. It's almost the 6 components, like hiring people in your pipeline, and
Yeah,
is a lot like recruiting customers.
exactly.
And so, is it literally the same process? I presume you're using a lot more AI in your new
Yeah.
Octolus company that you work with, but is it like the same structure of that process?
It's very similar. It's not the same
I see.
because recruiting is
Okay.
still is a bit different. You have different target audience, HR people, but it's very similar. So you always have like outreach component, and then you have like a very streamlined in-person component. And the outreach component, you want to make as much efficient as possible, so the people spend the right time with the right people, like the HR recruiter and the HR, the staff which does the interviews, spends the right time with the right people. And you can automate a lot in the front end here. And there's like tons of tools out there every week, a new AI tool, basically. So it's all about the timing, because right now we are definitely not
Yeah.
the early movers. With ComX, we have been the early movers. And I feel the
Right.
difference. It's completely different,
Right.
different feeling.
So let's go back to ComX here. What was it that you were really doing? I mean, if you did ComX in the US in 2018, 2020, would people have seen that it was a different approach? Or was it really kind of the modern, marketing, lead generation, and technology approach that modern companies in the US would have taken to Europe? Or what was unique about what you were doing there? You cracked the code and grew a
Yeah,
fast-growing company in Germany with, tech-enabled people.
yeah. I have to say, I have to be honest. The best salespeople, and I really admire, are people from the US. So I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of Gary Vaynerchuk,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
big fan of John Belfort. Like we learned a lot, and we took a lot of methodologies from those guys, like John Belfort and Alex Hormozy
Yes.
and Gary Vaynerchuk and Aaron Ross. Like we learned a lot from them for our own sales, and we saw like are people so bad in sales and so non-digital in Europe? And we were the first movers in Europe. Like we would have never had a chance in the US. We even looked into tools and like learned from them actually how to do it in the US.
Yeah.
We never copy pasted something because
Yeah.
Europe works
Yeah,
differently,
of course.
completely
Yeah.
differently. But
Yeah.
we learned a lot how to use the European language in bringing those sales methodologies into the market, and that was our core USP. And the core product, we only cooked with water. This was lead generation at the end with consultancy on top. And of course, like we framed it differently. We ate our own dog food. We call it message market fit for ourselves. So we call it complex sales cycles for SMEs and for CEOs that wasted already tons of money. For the sales team, hired the wrong people in sales. Like everyone did that. Also, we did it, and had the wrong sales methodologies. And it simply, if an expensive sales team is idle and has no leads, they really have a burning organization. And back in the
Right.
days, there were not other solutions. And one thing more. So first of all was the US or like marketing sales methodologies that we used in Europe. The second, for sure, that gave us a push was Corona. Suddenly, people were
Yeah,
panicking.
COVID, we
COVID,
say here. Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
COVID,
Mhm.
yeah, COVID. Definitely, people were not able to go to fairs anymore. Like fairs
Oh,
was
right.
one of the
Trade
most
shows, right? You were
trade
good. Yeah.
shows, fairs was one of the most successful lead gen tools for methodologies for European SMEs. Suddenly, that was
Right.
off. Like no one was allowed to go, and people believe that never stops again. So let's rather completely invest into online, and where are the online tools here in Europe? So they found ComX. So those two things, first mover in the market and using very smart methodologies that really solve the core problem and
Right.
translate it to the clients. This was really the USP that we used.
Yeah, and you must have gotten the results. Folks here in the States or, anybody who's running a business is getting daily
Yeah,
emails for lead gen agencies everywhere in the world. We'll get you thousands of leads and
yeah,
all the stuff. It's a very over marketed, oversold
yeah,
space. But
100%.
you figured out a way to do it, get results, and grow very fast in probably one of the most skeptical
Yeah,
markets on earth, right? German buyers are used to slow decision making because they're very comprehensive and deliberate, and then they'll make a decision. But you grew very fast. You found a way to, we would say, crack the code of selling this with a lot of trust and a lot of. You grew fast. You were very speedy there in the traditional German market.
absolutely. And I mean, I
Yeah, and
think,
how did you do
yeah.
that? Was it what was that, what was that, secret there? You spoke the right, language of ROI and
So it was two things. It was number one, it was being at the right time in the right space and just trying out.
aha,
So we used very early messages like AI for sales. So we call it top of the funnel, marketing funnel, and bottom of the marketing funnel. So the top of the funnel terminologies very early figured that out. So this was luck, timing, the right timing in the
Ah,
right market. We never stopped to test. But the methodology that we really like I said, eat your own dog food. The methodology that we used was the lean startup methodology. Like I'm still like, I think it's one of the best books in the startup environment. There are a lot of different versions now out there, but Eric Ries's Lean Startup, build, measure, learn. So we never got any investment in the beginning, obviously, and just focus on the customer value. And there comes the mechanical engineer mindset in, because we help to decode every little step with our clients, and it's love to detail, staying on the problem until you really understand the issue at hand. And there's a great book called The Mom Test. I recommend this to everyone. It's one of my
the
favorite
mom
books, The
test,
Mom
right?
Test.
Yes.
Yeah, your mom will always lie to you when you pitch your startup idea. So does your customer. So if I say, yeah, your product is great, and I didn't get a single lead out of that, it's not great, it's shit. I just
Yeah.
didn't tell you, and I don't trust you. So I need to ask, okay, actually interesting. How much leads did you really get? Actually zero. That's complete waste of money and time. So now I know, okay. So those two things, staying on the problem and really decoding the customer issues, those two things, that's how we were able to understand our own messaging. And we were able then we produced some videos also. We learned like from great people like also Nicky Cosme and salesprocess.io from the US actually how to create videos. So we learned from the best. We had amazing mentors at hand. We had
Right.
this value called when in doubt, go out. And we never stopped doing that. And every time we guessed ourselves, we were wrong, and we did extra loops and did the same mistakes again and again. So we just went out, kept on asking, build, measure, learn. And then we were very lucky to be very early in the digital sales lead gen space in Europe. And no one used that methodologies because everyone was just afraid of these aggressive terms from the US, ROI, we bring you more leads. And people, it was a very unsexy space in Europe. There's
Yeah.
GDPR in Europe. People were afraid. No one wanted to get into that space. And we didn't care. Like when I started and we sent emails and said like, yeah, in the beginning we said it's lead gen and email sending. People said, okay, stop that shit. It will never work. We wrote our thesis about that area. The mentor, or like basically there was a sensor next to our teacher who did the final exam. We asked him, what do you think about it? Should we actually try to do it? It was really about like scaling, automated the business through lead gen. And he said, yeah, you rather look for a proper job and not do that. And we got headwind from all areas. Like people just said,
Yeah.
like this doesn't sound really good. The first emails we sent, people were calling me and said that's against the law, so you rather stop it. It was in
Right.
Scandinavia. Persistency. So we kept on, and we basically the first years we really we had a great founding team. So this was our psychological mechanism just to deal with the pressure and that and the resistance in the market, and we just basically supported each other. And the founding team, that's a secret recipe. Like the trust there, like me with Philip and B together, just dealing with that, with the struggles and the stress that we had there. That's for sure the fourth component. So like the combination it is actually.
So what is it about you? I know you have an engineering background. You created this very systematic approach to all of this, but what is it about you and I guess the other founders, Pete and Philip, that were so persistent? Well, kind of that American entrepreneurial myth, right? That maybe reality, right? To innovate and keep trying, and
Yeah.
people will say no and so forth, which isn't so common in Germany. What was it about that you guys took to that, and you wouldn't give up when everybody said, "Don't do it that way"?
There was no option B. The option B was just like, hey, find a job again. So we were very hungry, young, talented people. And honestly, we always looked into the US as role models. Like I mentioned all in podcasts before. Like we always
Yes,
looked into the US and we just like, okay, if those guys can do it, why can't we do it? And that's
of
a
course.
methodology and that's a mindset that's definitely missing. Like there are books around like why Germany just overslept like the digital age basically, and the biggest
Yeah.
companies are from the US. So we were just like, okay, what do those guys different? So basically, they focus on solving the problems, and like traditional methodologies are sometimes not the right thing to do. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to rethink. And if you're the first mover, again, back to the first mover advantage, then you have loads of advantages to do that. But you have to do the first move, and that's scary. And
Ah. Right. Yeah, that first mover advantage, to be the pioneer,
Yeah.
right? Doing it first when everybody's saying, don't do that, stop doing that. I've never seen that before. It's an advantage, looking back. But when you're doing it and people aren't used to it, you're the new thing. Not everybody's doing it. Almost nobody's doing it yet, right? I was the first mover in CRM way back in the day, and you went to Germany in France, and they said, "We don't sell with computers. We know our customers. We know our families, right? We eat lunches with them. That's how we sell, right?" But yeah, you were pioneers in this space. Would you say that the world has changed in Germany and Europe about this kind of lead generation, or is there still the same skepticism for these, let's say, modern digital, even American sales and marketing practices?
It has changed. The number
Oh,
of
okay.
cold emails I receive compared to before and my peers, it's insane.
Yes.
And I take my responsibility in it because we were part of it, 100%, 110%. And I say one thing in sales, it's always about like the channel. And sometimes at some point the channel will be just like full,
Killed.
right? Killed. And like there's a lot of noise and the noise is too loud. So you move to the next channel. So we had
Yeah.
Google Ads and we still have Google Ads. Lots of things are changing now with AI and ChatGPT there. Transparency of buying behaviors. We have email. Email is still like one of the most used tools on this planet. People look daily in their inbox. This will never change. We have WhatsApp, so maybe we'll switch to WhatsApp at some point.
Yes.
People go back. I just went to a podcast about lead generation nowadays, and it's again going back a lot to phone because people sometimes
Yes.
simply they don't respond. You get an email, people look at the subject line, then 2 days later you call them. So it's all about the channel. So the louder the channel is, the more full the channel is, the more likely you just try a different one. But the sales some basic methodologies will always stay the same, and that's basically what we focused on: the methodology of ideal customer profile and the right message for the right person at the right time.
This podcast is brought to you by my friends at Fullscale. 2 years ago, I interviewed three-time software founder Matt Watson on this podcast about his successful practical founder journeys. Matt leveraged offshore software development talent in his last two SaaS companies to staff up quickly and grow efficiently. So for his fourth venture, Matt created Fullscale, one of the fastest growing software development companies in any region. Fullscale vets, employs, and supports over 300 professional software developers and testers in the Philippines who can augment and extend your core dev team. I know several practical SaaS founders who use Fullscale's dev talent to make progress on their products and do it efficiently. Visit fullscale.io to learn why their approach works so well for so many SaaS founders. Now back to our program. Yeah, because if you have something that's valuable and they have a problem, it is about unlocking that message
Yeah.
to, the hearing game. And the tactics change in that. But that's really interesting. Do you feel looking back now, right there, the modern marketing tactics are getting killed? AI is coming in and automating and, between emails and outbounds and even voicemails and other things. Do you feel like you had good timing to get out of that business after the pioneering phase ended and the AI phase almost started?
100%, 100%. The barrier of entry is very low, and we always knew it's low. Basically, what you need
Right.
to start a lead gen business is motivated people, hungry people, mostly for money, and
Yep.
it's a computer and a good webcam and good audio. So that's all you need. Barrier of entry is almost
Right.
zero. So we knew, okay, first mover is great, but we need also to be first, like in technology. That was not our core strength. Like we had a Beat as CTO, but he didn't have like a technical background of leading like a tech team. We knew that very early also. So that was for us like very important getting a strategic partner in. And definitely it was the right time actually to get a partner in actually.
Wow, that's amazing here. So, did you stayed on for a couple years with Flex after the let's say the acquisition or
Yes.
the partnership, investment as well? Did the world continue to change, in lead gen, and did your pioneering approaches still work?
Absolutely changed a lot. So what that two major dynamics had which happened after the deal. So we completely stayed on. Like for us, it was very important building legacies. There were 140 people working there, 70 families, so 70 people in South Africa, 70 families, unemployment rate 51%. This was our
Hmm.
our baby, our charity, not only charity program. It was
Yeah.
always our passion, actually helping also other people, like offering them opportunity, especially in Africa. And
Yeah.
we felt responsible for the family,
Yes.
basically. So we stayed on 110%. And due to dynamics, major dynamics change, which was number one, interest rate. There was, during COVID, lots of money pushed into the market, and that didn't end well. So especially in Germany, worldwide, everyone knows what happened. Exactly.
Right.
It exploded. Insolvencies came in. Our clients, SMEs, struggled first because like always the people in the
Right.
companies on the bottom of the pyramid, they are hit very hard.
Yeah.
So we had extremely high churn. It was much more difficult to sell it because people were sometimes freezing in sales budgets. So it was a whole like cycle of
Yes.
vicious cycle
Contraction. Yes.
contraction in the full European market. That's the first. And the second is competition. We simply had more competition on the market.
Ah.
And that basically was really hard because there was a lot of debt in the business. So at the end, we needed to sell off the business into an asset deal because the debt was simply too high. And we unfortunately didn't have a second exit. I mean, we had an exit, but we didn't get anything for it. And so we were very happy actually to sell it in an asset deal to a strategic partner. And it's still like sailing the ship comics. And it was that was our major goal, basically, to have let the company and the legacy continue. And we completely left the company last year in July 2024, actually.
Okay. So you mentioned the economy and
Yeah,
the market changed, but you had some debt from your private equity partners on this
exactly.
this company to maybe finance the deal in the first place. And debt can be very challenging if you know when you can't pay it back. The lines crossed and something had to be done there apparently. So with the debt, that kind of pushed off to another sale. Is that what you're saying?
100%, 100%,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's a lot. I learned a lot. It was like an MBA on crack. Like, don't understand me wrong. I'm very grateful
Yes.
for the journey. And also, if we didn't get anything out of it, I got so much experience because imagine my journey. Like, sometimes I just have to realize that myself. Maybe I sometimes still forget because of the PTSD of all this stress, like the last 7 years. But we
Yeah.
started bootstrapped, and then we sold it, and then we got rehired in our own company as C-level, like COO, CEO, and CTO,
Yeah.
and we basically got salary again in our own company. So it was a completely different feeling. Suddenly we had this governance. Suddenly we built really amazing structured finance boards, budgeting. First time we learned how to budget. First time we learned how to really recruit really good people and like middle management. And still like it was for us like the dynamics, and there's always a risk in the market. I think what I learned is like also it can go up, it can go down. It's just important to have like your really trusted founding team and have really like be very transparent with people. So I learned it through my co-founder Philip a lot, how to really be transparent in communication, also with difficult communication. And I learned
Yeah.
like communicating with people, why change, why now, and what's in it for the people. And of course, if the company goes down and revenues drop and customers like dropping significantly, you better have a good story and to build trust because people employees are just like, okay, I can have tomorrow another job there. Why should I stay
Yeah.
with you? People stayed with
Yeah.
us. I couldn't believe it. So there was a lot of things that we could have for sure done better. I think we did an okay job. On the other hand, the management of the banks, basically that's where the debt was coming from. There was also a major part in the whole thing when the revenues were just short. And I think we navigated quite well as a team out there. But still, I wouldn't wish to be in that situation again because there's pressure from the front, from the numbers, and from your employees. So you're completely crushed. But it's basically part of the founding journey, especially if you scale up. There's always this risk that things don't go that well, and you need to have a plan B. And basically, the plan B, that's what I learned how to structure that and how to really cope with bad numbers and like going down business.
Well, it sounds very exciting, right? To be growing so fast. You were growing over 100% a
Yeah,
year, adding teams, and it was working. And you were moving very fast in a very challenging market, the German market, and producing results. And you sold the company successfully, a majority of it, and things changed here. What were some of the hardest things that you had to deal with along the way before you sold the company and after?
before we sold the company, the hardest thing was for me. Yeah, the persistency, I think, I have a huge respect from people in support teams, especially in
Ah,
high tickets, account management support teams. I have high respect. I built lots of resilience doing that, and like I have high respect. And it was not easy. Like I struggled a lot. Um, I mean, the things where a lot of startups struggle that I help with is like very early message market fit or like a product market fit, and we never had that really because we were very lucky first movers in the market. And
right.
the moment we scaled and we needed to scale support the same time that we did sales, and that was basically Philip was responsible for sales, I was responsible for support. Um, I needed to learn how basically how can we scale support teams fast? How can we hire people? We're 70 support people at the end. How can you really give them also the psychological support to deal with that amount of pressure? And that was really, really hard and challenging for me until the end. Hiring also the right people in that area, and I did loads of mistakes there.
Yeah.
After the sale, basically the hardest thing for me was when we decided to change commission structure, and we needed to because we had unlimited revenue share, which is great for a fast-growing startup.
Yeah,
And
when everything's going like
absolutely,
that, right.
it's going like that. Everyone's getting a piece of the cake, and instead of like equity share, we decided to give revenue share, and that's a very, very great model.
Yeah.
It can be very difficult at the end if the sales team and the teams get too big, and you have suddenly like a higher base cost. If you have have a higher base cost, you need also to basically just like, to keep the money in the bank account and like reinvest every year. And I think at the end we paid 12 to 13% for each sales deal, so salespeople. So they
Uh,
made an amazing job. They earned also the share of money. The moment we changed it, something happened that I wouldn't have expected. We had a cultural completely disruption. So people, they were calling me on the phone. They said, "What the fuck are you doing?" And that doesn't matter what we said. Like we said, okay, it's a new company. We need to have new structures. At the end, people saw like, I get less money for the same job. I go away. And
okay.
they felt betrayed also. So, and I underestimated that. We thought, okay, people understand, but of course, everyone cares about his own career and about his own bank account. And I underestimated that simply. So that's, I think the most two challenging things, it's all about people, like people management and people. And I think that's where I also did the most mistakes. And that's what I'm grateful for, like having learned like such hard lessons, because I can advise other people now on my next startup journey.
Yeah.
I can advise like differently, like what to really take care of. And we simply had no idea. It was my first company, basically.
Yeah. Well, and it was successful, this speed startup, and right, and then you scaled up and had, it's a different sport to have a bigger
Yeah.
company and also do it inside a private equity backed structure with debt and so forth here. Can you say, you know, yourself, your preference, are you more of a speed startup kind of guy, or did you like having a bigger team and a little bit more structure? There's
Yeah.
people who like that
Yeah.
better
Yeah. Yeah.
as well. Is
100%.
are you are do you go one way or the other?
I go definitely the first way. I'm a big fan of like Data Deals books from 0 to 1, and I think that
Yeah,
describes my
0 to 1.
preference. Exactly, that describes my preference of business a lot. Like I really like testing out MVPs very fast, build fast, fail fast, and then hand over to a bigger team. I could learn this also through
Ah,
exactly like I could learn this also through our sale. When I was the COO for 140 people, I didn't enjoy it too much. There were too rigid
eh,
structures. I needed to be a different person also because it's very important with this team size, and that's not 100% me. I prefer the excitement of building something, having an MVP that's working, and doing your first sales and your first 100K MRR in revenue, and that's an amazing feeling. Going somewhere on an island, celebrating this with your team 1 or 2 days, there's no better feeling. And nobody in the world actually that can make up for the exit afterwards. And I think this energy, I will always try to get this energy like back into my life because I enjoy it. Even if it's as an advisor, you can say we did it together. And the early stages, there's something, especially nowadays with AI and all the automation, ways of automating. The basic recipe is still the same, but you can do it much faster today. So I'm very
yeah.
excited actually about this whole AI
Yes.
movement.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I'm right now holding back my horses, so I have a couple of advisory gigs where I work with a couple of CTOs and look into what's the next trends, where can we build our new niches, which niches are maybe not so much digitalized, more handheld, but can be still great niches to make a good amount of money. And I think it's exciting times right now, actually being an entrepreneur. But it definitely has changed completely to 2019 and 2020.
Yes, very exciting time. Does that mean you're full-time learning and experimenting and waiting for the right timing for the opportunity to start your next, crazy venture?
Definitely. And a couple of things I won't do again. I won't be in the driver's seat again. So I don't want to be the face in front of like the new gig that's starting. I think there are better people out there than me. But I love just to be in the back. Like I always like to build or like repair engines, like a motorcycle. I'm a driving
Ah,
motorcyclist since 25 years. And I just love to rebuild them and figure out if there's a problem and an issue. The same thing I like to do at a company. I love to look at a problem, solve it. It gives me a lot of satisfaction. I don't know where it comes from,
yeah,
but it gives me lots of satisfaction, especially if I see, even if someone else gets the fame for it, I really feel very good about it because I helped the mission to succeed, right? I'm more like
right.
a leader like this. I'm more like, that's why I call myself right now as an advisor. So right now, actually, I do support like also for free, like a couple of like small, medium-sized companies. I always look at the founding team, and if the
Mhm.
founding team is a really are really like great people, and sometimes you can feel in the psychology of the founding team actually how they're playing together and what background they have. You can already say, okay, is this something that might has potential for success? Because you always need to remember building really successful startup like we did, it's like going to lottery. Like there's so many factors
Yes,
that can go wrong. But one thing I can control is like who are the people? What drives them? What how do they deal with pressure with each other? Do they trust each other and so on? And that's basically what I look for the next space and opportunity. And the space I see a lot of spaces being disrupted right now with AI, especially the old SaaS game, like
yeah,
the Salesforce licenses old back in the days. I think there will be a huge disruption. All in podcasts like David Sachs, etc. They talked a
yes,
lot
right.
about it. I have loads of friends in those companies, like having sales roles, like at HubSpot, at Salesforce, etc. I'm a bit afraid of their jobs. What will happen? There will happen a disruption. That's why
Mm,
I'm right now, I'm in a very luxurious position to wait, but I'm looking now to the next 12 to 24 months. Let's see what happens with AI agents, because imagine nowadays, I already found a couple of tools who did this exactly the same, just much better, what we did with comics, and that's only 2 years
mm,
after our sales. Of
wow,
course, built with AI. And
wow.
I, I'm I right now wait also, okay, what's happening actually, and I think it will be a combination of like how like AI and like how AI enables people to do a better job. And
Yes.
that's what I'm looking right now. But it's like I would say very early stage, and I enjoy
Yeah,
that area
yeah.
also, just observing the market and like
The
finding
open, yes.
exactly.
Right. Well, that's kind of the frontier game is
Yeah,
you gotta go out on the frontier and watch it develop, right? And try things and, wait, and timing is one of the most powerful things there, but you can't be late. You have to get out on the frontier and to be ready for when something
yeah,
takes off or to create the thing that takes off, right? So
okay.
so you can have an effect on that as well by, being a pioneer. Are your other, founders the same way? You're 3 crazy pioneers, and you're all looking around for what's the next
Absolutely,
wave?
absolutely. I mean, I
Yes.
always look up to Philip, my CEO co-founder. He's an amazing guy. He's all over it. He has created this amazing B2B training for entrepreneurs where he helps them on scale. I didn't even know that this
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
possible, and he's already like much more ahead and much more forward. But we also like do lots of stuff together still, so they are the same.
Okay.
Beat from South Africa, of course. Like he's also looking to the next things. He takes it a bit more chilled. He has like 2 kids, and right now spends his time in Portugal. It's also great like to chill a bit. And I also had the last 12 months since I'm out to surf a lot and like be laid back. But
Okay.
I see my environment. I surround myself also with entrepreneurs, and I just simply
Mhm.
like those people, and that
Yeah.
pushes me a lot
Yes.
forward, right? And of
Right.
course, my co-founders are my very good friends still, and I'm very happy having them in my life and having done such a beautiful journey. And I heard so many sad co-founding stories where people just separated. So I can't just stress how
Mm.
important it is to be it's like a second marriage. Like I just
Yes.
got engaged. I will marry next year.
Oh,
Like,
congratulations. Yeah.
thank you so much. My first marriage, I think, was to Philip and Beat. So I already made loads of experience
You've
there.
already been broken in, so well done.
100%. It's
Yeah.
like marrying, like it's like like a marriage, and it's like 100% about trust, and you do share a lots of things together, and
Yes.
yeah, trust helps you to survive hard
Well,
times.
I know you've won a big prize, and you're the pioneer, startup kind of guy, but you can't go back to a normal job anymore. You've got to find the next
Yeah.
exciting in a motorcycle. I don't know if you're a racer, right? You like the adrenaline and the energy here, so I can imagine a lifetime of these kind of adventures. Was there something you did with your prize money when you and the three of you sold the majority of the company successfully? So successfully?
I mean, when we sold it, actually, of course, like we celebrated basically, and had a great time together. And like my most favorite memory, but was just like when we three founders just looked in each other's eyes and we signed at the
Oh,
end,
right.
and we
Uh-huh.
remembered simply, and we basically opened our phones and saw like Istanbul, our first founder retreat
Yes.
2019. We were just like, should we really do this with GDPR? May 2019, there was a new
Yeah.
regulation coming in, and we were just like, okay, maybe just stop it. And we said, okay, let's try it. So we remembered from that point to selling the company in 2.5 years, it was actually celebrating this as a team. This was my
Yeah.
favorite moment. With the money, I didn't do a lot. Like basically, I reinvested lots of things. I basically built some real estate with family, which was also great experience. And personally, I'm not a big spender. I like just to have a humble life. Not
Okay.
possession doesn't drive me. I have 1 or 2 motorcycles. I'm doing my pilot license now. I always wanted to become a pilot. I'm doing it right now. So
Yeah.
for me, like I read very early the book like Die with Zero and
Yeah.
Psychology of Money. That's really me.
Right?
It's
Yes.
it's really about the freedom. Like for me, the
Yep.
freedom I have is it's worth more than all the money, and I'm very grateful being able right now at a state of change. Also, I see loads of founders right now having
Yes.
tried the last
Right.
year struggling right now, but
Right.
being able to observe, and I think the people which are able to observe right now the market, they will find the next big gig and not to burn
Yes.
out. That's very important. So that's for me the prize money, the big one, the freedom that I
Yes.
got.
Well, that's very exciting, and you're still young in your career with all this passion and energy. And I can relate to to loving the puzzle of the whole system, right? That you guys figured out this whole sales and marketing system, the startup system, and maybe it's your engineer brain on that, and there's an infinite number of puzzles. So it'll be a very very exciting next phase with AI. Chris, I ask every founder I talk to on the podcast what is their most typical and valuable knowledge they share with new founders? Maybe in the Berlin startup scene there, you visit and people say, "Should I do this or that?" But what advice do you give most often to founders in the software game in Europe?
I mean, I to 99% of the time I say, why do you collect money that early?
Ah,
I asked it very and I'm very pushy on that one because I know the freedom that you can create and when building Bootstrap. I don't know. Maybe the Bootstrap thing in
you
Europe.
mean raise money like from investors and that kind of thing?
Pro
Or yes,
investors, VC
okay,
money, angel tickets, give away shares very early, not focusing on product market fit, but rather focusing on collecting capital to build the product
there we go.
without having it
Right,
validated too early. And I'm asking them, why do you want to raise or like get money, collect money that early? Uh, and the advice I give them is basically just ask, they should answer me the question. And the moment I just shared an hour story like and with comics and what I believe works well, and I think that's why I'm a big fan of your podcast. Also, I think there's a huge education, especially in Europe. People need to be educated how to found properly, and that's what I
yeah.
also want to focus on, basically to educate the market and young founders. Because I see like, I mean, of course it can go well, but the chances that something fucks up are much higher, and then and then young people are in a very bad
That's the
situation.
headline
Yeah,
right there. That is the big sign that everybody the chances are that it's not gonna work is actually much higher. I know you're optimistic and,
exactly.
when you raise money, but, like you raised debt and it didn't work,
And I also did angel
or
tickets, and of course LBs, they are just pissed if it
yeah.
fails. I mean, it's a startup, but they're still pissed. So do you want to piss someone else off, or do you want to do the right thing in the beginning stages? So almost all of young founders give 2 books. I already mentioned a couple of times, the Lean Startup and the Mom Test, those 2 things. And I do also help.
And what was the second book? Sorry?
The Mom Test. The Mom Test.
The Mom
The
Test.
Mom
Okay,
Test.
right.
Yeah,
Yes.
the Mom Test. Exactly.
Yes.
And basically that's the advices I give. And I do also help them with early stage product fit finding or message finding.
Yes.
With the right target audience and really how to do proper interviews. And
Right.
I think there's a lot of added value in just spending a half a year more in doing more interviews before you build something really complex.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that when I totally agree, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing about not being
Yeah.
too interested in raising money too quickly. I'm not totally against it, but it usually doesn't work and usually waste time with the quest of building something valuable and a business along the way.
Yeah.
But one of the most typical bits of advice I've heard from founders I know, this goes back 30 years, is I wish I wouldn't have raised money so early or, or ever, is the regret, because it usually doesn't work out. And you spend at least half your time raising money per year when you could be solving the problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't take money to go create a startup, and especially in the AI world. So times have changed. Are you saying that there is a funding and a VC and a mentality in the Berlin tech startup scene there that
I mean,
people?
there's a
Yeah.
global trend which says we see that.
Yes.
We see that right now because it's
Right.
simply also PE struggles, private equity. It's very high interest rates. Like I saw a couple of my buddies trying to sell the business to PE and the interest rates of 6% because of risk capital, and it doesn't make sense to private equity deals. So they put in
Right.
hardcore basically limitations and negotiation tactics on founders where I'm just like, you can say no right now because they put you back against the wall. So
Yes.
I think with the high, like in Europe right now, not in the US, but right now as we have like May 2025, the interest rates go down because we have a recession in Europe. I hope
Yes.
in the US it won't happen. I know there are lots of discussions, high interest rates there. As interest rates go down, capital gets cheaper, and you can just hope that slowly, I'm also LP in a VC fund, that slowly capital actually gets easier for early stage founders, but right now it's really difficult to raise capital.
And really costly.
Yeah, very, very
That's
costly.
great.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on a crazy and successful, let's say American style speed startup journey in Germany, and a successful exit. You fought for your freedom, and you bought your freedom, and you've earned it. So,
Thanks so much, Greg.
what an important prize.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I hope there are lots of listeners out there who are inspired because of your podcast, doing the same thing and getting and earning the freedom.
Right. Awesome. Congratulations. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks so much, Greg.
Thanks for watching this week's interview on the Practical Founders podcast. Be sure to like this episode and subscribe to the Practical Founders YouTube channel to keep up with my weekly in-depth interviews with serious software founders who are building valuable software companies without big funding. You can check out my blog, all the podcast episodes, and information about my Practical Founders CEO peer groups at practicalfounders.com, or message me on LinkedIn if you'd like to connect. See you next week.